But getting to the Arabic script now, the first letter in the Arabic script is Aleph. Aleph. And Aleph is a very interesting letter. Basically, it signifies that there is a open vowel. Usually that's what it means. If you put a little, what's called a hamza on top, then the hamza is signifies an epiglottal stop, what we call an epiglottal stop in linguistics, which the epiglottis is basically a piece of tissue that stops or plugs the airway, so that when you swallow food, your food will not go into your lungs. Or when you're drinking water, it won't go into your lungs. It stops the airways there. And it's also used in a lot of languages, and it's used in English. People just not so aware of it, but we do use it in English. So when I was learning Arabic and found out, oh, there's this epiglottal stop in Arabic, it wasn't that big of a deal for me. It took me maybe a little while to get used to kind of controlling it in a different way. But if you say, uh-oh, like when something bad happens, uh-oh, that little break in between the and the o, uh-oh, that's your epiglottis. And also, you see it more noticeably in like British English, or you see it in England, you see it in Scotland, and I think in Ireland they do it too. But like, where for instance the word button will become like button. They tend to do this with T's. The T, this is a phonological rule in their dialect, where the T in certain circumstances, and usually it happens when it's preceded by a vowel, is what I remember from my phonology class, is that it would change into epiglottal stop. And so you get something like button, or you could say, British English, pretty cool, isn't it? British instead of British, and those types of things. So the epiglottal stop is represented by the hamza, which is a lot of times found right on top of the aleph. Sometimes they go together, sometimes they don't. So you'll find, like in the word abyad, it begins with the hamza on the aleph, abyad. And that's to signify that if there's a word before it, or some sound before it, you have to make a break there. So it's not blending together, because, and you would say like the white, you would say al-abyad. You see how there's a stop there? Al-abyad. Instead of al-abyad. Does that make sense? But the aleph, basically, like I said, it signifies this open vowel, and there's different vowels in Arabic, so it could, depending on what we call tashkil, or the vowel markings in Arabic, which is basically they have dashes or symbols, little symbols on top of the consonants that would tell you what the vowel is. And these were invented much later on, when a lot of non-Arabs were trying to learn Arabic, because the native speakers really didn't need them. And so it can just signify different, like a, u, e, different vowels. And it's basically like a stick or a tree, just kind of up and down. And then the next one that we had there was ba. Ba. And this, like in Arabic language, you kind of have like groupings of different symbols, and maybe you could just call this one like a bowl letter, like a bowl. So you have bat, and bat is basically a bowl with a dot on the bottom. And bat it's a prefix also in Arabic that can add a lot of different meanings depending on the context to different words. But I mean, it's the letter that starts bait, house, bat. And like I said, it's a bowl with a dot underneath. And so the way, like when I teach people Arabic, when I do Arabic classes, I tell them it's below bat, because the word below starts with the sound bat, below bat. And that's how they can remember that the dot's below bat, below bowl bat. That's a fun way to remember it, below bowl bat. And then the next letter is ta, which is another bowl letter, but it's got two dots on top. So I always like to call it two top ta, or two ta, or two top ta, something like that. And this is like, you know, your average T sound in English. The bat is like your B sound. And then we have that. That is, I like to call it three that, because it's got three dots on top. That's the easy way to remember it for me, is three that. Three that. And three that. And it also starts the Arabic word for three, thalatha, or thalathu, depending on the context. The Arabic grammar's crazy. And then you say alif, ba, ta, tha, jim. Let's go with jim. Now this starts a new class of letters. As I said earlier in my channel, I made a video about Yusuf Estes. Kind of has a fun, clever way of going over Arabic too. Also, someone I recommend who kind of has a fun, clever way is what's his name now? Abu Tauba is what he went by. And irregardless of all the other drama that he's been involved in, and maybe criminal activity, I'm not talking about that. Just his videos for Arabic, I think he had some clever stuff, some of the stuff I took from him. And so, anyways, Yusuf Estes called this classification of letters as potbelly letters. And I think this is a real clever way for English speakers to remember potbelly letters, because that is kind of what it looks like. So, Jim is a potbelly letter, and it's a lot like the J in English, Jim. And maybe you could say Jim. Gotta go to the gym, get rid of that belly. Otherwise, we also have ha, which is I'm trying to remember the linguistic term, or the point of articulation. I might have to look it up and then, you know, put it here in words. But I want to say it's a laryngeal, voiceless fricative, which means that it's kind of in the larynx area, and you'll find this in a lot of the Afro-Asiatic languages. It's like a very thick H sound, maybe is how we might describe it. And you'll see it in the Arabic word Hajj, which means pilgrimage, which is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, Hajj. You'll also see it in I don't know, the word miftah, which means key. Miftah, or miftah, what is it? Mafatih, which is the plural. Or maftuh, which means open. Or fath, which means to make open. Or it also refers to conquering land, because you're opening the land up. That's how the Arabs thought of it. And so you have alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, and kha. And kha is also a very similar point of articulation to ha. I think it's a little bit higher up. Kha. And I don't even know how to describe that in linguistic terms, the point of articulation right there. But kha, it is found also in a lot of Afro-Asiatic languages. It's also, they have it in German. Like the word for stomach in German is Bauch. Although it's slightly, I think a little bit lighter and a little bit higher up than the Arabic kha. But like I said earlier, a word that starts with kha is kharaja, which means to exit. And also an important term that comes from this word is khariji or khawarij, which refers to extremists in Islam, which you'll never see ever used on the news. The Orientalists would use the term Kharijite, that's the anglicized form of it, Kharijite or Kharijite. But they were people who they exited from the mainstream Orthodox Islamic theology and practice. And so we called them as Khawarij, which you could translate to as dissenters. So the word kha, it has that kind of sound. Starts, you find it in words, a lot of Arabic words. And one Arabic word that you'll find it at the end is batikh, which means watermelon. So then you have alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, kha, dal. Now dal is like the English D, very similar, dal. Same point of articulation as in English, dal. One Arabic word that you'll find it in is wadud, which means if you say al-wadud, it's the all-loving. It's one of the names that...
1 mile, keep right.
Sorry, that's my GPS. It's one of the names that we call God in Arabic. Wadud, el-wadud, the all-loving. Or you could say adada, which is like to add or to count or to multiply. Adada. Or ma'adud, which means like a lot or numerous. Ma'adud. So you have different words with dal in it. And then you have thal. Now, we talked earlier about tha. Now, tha and thal are both what you call interdental fricatives, okay? And that means where the tongue is having a friction with your front teeth, basically. And so I don't know how well you can see it because it's kind of getting
1 mile,
it's getting dark.
Right.
But it's tha and thal. Now the difference between it is that tha is voiceless and the thal is voiced. And in linguistic terms, what that means is that when something's voiceless, there's no vibration. So tha, there's no vibration, there's just friction. But in thal, there is vibration. And this is an extremely important distinction in the Arabic language. they're two separate letters altogether. And so if you get them mixed up, you're going to have a word with totally different meaning than what you intended.
Exit right.
So you got to be quite careful not confusing the two. And in Old English, that distinction was also there. That's why in Old English you will see two separate letters, which I talked about in my phonetics video, or introduction to phonetics, or what is phonetics. I think I call it what is phonetics. I talk about that. And so in Arabic there's this distinction, and so you have to be very careful with thal, is making it vibrated. So you have alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, kha, dal, thal, ra. So ra is like the R sound in Arabic, but it's still quite different because it's
in 1.5 miles, exit right.
It's way more in the front of the mouth. It's more behind the front teeth, and whereas the English R is like way in the back, especially the American R, like when we say bird or word, those things, that R is like way up there, way back there. Whereas in Arabic, it's way more in the front, and the ra, you could hear that it's rolled. So ra.
In 1 mile, exit right.
Ra. And so the Arabic word for soul is ruh. And you also have what's called ruhaniya, or spirituality. You also have the word daraja, darajatun. You also have rih, which is wind. And those are, it's actually, as you can see, it's got the same consonants, rih and ruh, and they're actually related. They refer to something as being into motion, something that's moving. And this is why I love the Arabic language. I find the etymology of the Arabic language so fascinating. But the word for soul, ruh, is related for the words wind, or rih. And that shows you that there's this connection of the movement of the wind with the movement of the soul. And how I was explained to this, and how this kind of works together, what makes something alive instead of dead? Sorry there, my camera's going a little bit crazy. But what makes something alive versus something that's dead? And, it's motion of atoms. A rock, all the atoms are there. There's not a whole lot of motion going on, But in living creatures, you have all these atoms moving around, all this motion, all these things going on, that's keeping us...
Continue on route.
Keeping us as a living creature, keeping us alive. And when we die, that motion ceases. And then what happens is we decompose. So there's other creatures causing motion upon us. I don't know, maybe it's one way to understand how the Arabs kind of thought about life and death and the word, the soul, and how they related it to all these different things. But to me, from a linguistic point of view, scientific point of view, I find that very fascinating. So then you have, and one way to remember this, if you want an easy way to remember this, because dal and thal, they're kind of not, I don't have a fun way to remember them. But with ra, some people, they called it reverse ramp ra, because it looks like a ramp, like a skateboarding ramp. I used to skateboard back in the day. Kind of looks like quarter pipe is what they called it. Reverse ramp ra. And then you just put a dot on top of it, and all of a sudden it becomes zay. Zay, it is, you know, like the English Z. Zay. And so there's one word, zuhziha, which means basically to crawl without using your legs, but crawling with your arms. I don't know why that came to mind. You also have zilzala, which means like earthquake or shaking. Right now I'm driving, I'm traveling to pick up my cousin, Muzammil, which means the one who is like wrapped. You have the word Zammiluni. There's a story where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he went to it after receiving revelation, the first revelation of the Quran. He was so scared, he went to his wife Khadija, and he said, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, which means like cover me or wrap me with the blanket. And so then you have the word Muzammil. And it's a chapter in the Quran, it's called chapter Muzammil, Surah Al-Muzammil. And it's in, you know, you see it as a Muslim name. So that's one word, Muzammil. Also you have khubz, which is bread. So that's Zay. So, sorry, I have to go over the alphabet in my head. Alif, Ba, Ta, Tha, Jim, Ha, Kha, Dal, Thal, Ra, Zay, Sin. So Sin. This one I have a funnier way to remember it. Sin. Because it's a goofy looking letter. It's kind of like a little waves or whatever. Sin. But, you know, I seen. That's pretty cheesy, but it kind of works that way. Because I've seen how goofy it is. I don't know. But seen is basically like, you know, the S in English. And you have Sheen, which is the same thing with 3 dots on top of it. Sheen. And by the way, too, I should have mentioned this earlier with Tha, but the letters where you have 3 dots on top of them, and I know this goes for Arabic, I'm not so sure if this goes for Persian or Urdu, or, you know, like Somali used to be written with the Arabic script, Turkish used to be written with the Arabic script. A lot of languages used to be written with the Arabic script, but then once the printing press came out, a lot of languages decided not to go with the Arabic script anymore because it was very hard to print on a large scale. And it was harder for foreigners to learn, basically Westerners. At the time, colonization was also going on. Those types of things. But, so I don't know if this applies to other languages besides Arabic specifically, but I know whenever there's 3 dots above a letter in Arabic, sometimes they make a shortcut by like kind of making a sort of like a bottomless triangle on top of the letter. And so you have Sheen and Tha, which both have that phenomena going on, but Sheen, I like to call it Charlie Sheen. That's how I remember it. The actor Charlie Sheen. So Sheen is the SH sound in Arabic. So Sheen is in the word Sheikh or Shams or Sham, the likes, or Wahoosh. So you have Alif, Ba, Ta, Tha, Jim, Ha, Kha, Dal, Dal, Ra, Zay, Sin, Sheen, Sawad. Now we're going to get into the Sawad, or these sounds that, as far as I know, are very unique to Arabic. So Sawad is basically, the way I describe it is it's a heavy S sound. It's a thicker S. And it's made thicker because I think the tongue is a little bit more tense. The tongue is in a different position, and you drop your jaw way down. When I teach people these sounds, I tell them your jaw has to go all the way down. Drop that jaw, or drop jaw is kind of what I call it. Because whenever you have these type of sounds, and there's more after this that we'll get into, like sawd, in Arabic language specifically, the vowel completely changes. Whether the vowel precedes the sound or it comes after the sound. So you have the word sadiq, which means someone who's truthful, or in the, like typical fusha, means like a friend, sadiq. But you also have the word which means objective, or intention, or like reason behind, is qasd.
In 3/4 of a mile, exit right, then turn right.
You can see that the vowel before it is even affected. Qasd. And so sawd. And we also have the word which means like path or way, which is sirata. And there's many words, you'll see this a lot, and it's very, very often and regularly
exit right, then turn right.
mispronounced by non-Arabs. I see, especially like Somalis that are learning Arabic.
In 1/2 mile,
They have
turn
a
right, then turn right.
big problem pronouncing the sawd. Actually, it's just a lot of non-Arabs in particular. I've seen a lot of Indonesians that have problems pronouncing it. Obviously Americans too, because we don't got that sound.
Then turn right.
So yeah, these sounds are kind of very unique, I guess, to Arabic. So you have sawd, and it's got its own unique shape and stuff. I don't even know how to describe it. Then you put a dot on top of it, and it becomes bod. Now, bod, I really want to talk about bod, because bod is very unique specifically to Arabic. Okay, now I'm in North Minneapolis, so hopefully my camera don't shake too much, because the roads here ain't so good. Okay. So you have this letter bod, and bod is completely unique to the Arabic language. Completely unique. They call, the Arabs will call Arabic language Lughat al-Bod, which means the language of bod. And this one is extremely hard to pronounce for a lot of people who are learning Arabic as a second language. And even if they get close to pronouncing it, it's still the being precise, the precision still is out of their reach, or they still haven't quite gotten there yet. And that's because I don't even think there's a proper linguistic term to conceptualize the point of articulation. Because, like I said, it's so unique to Arabic and no other language has it. I might have to coin my own term. It depends. I mean, you really have to go and really measure and observe a lot of speakers pronouncing this word, because I'm talking from a prescriptive grammar point of view, and maybe this isn't exactly the way that all native Arabic speakers pronounce the sound. There's different dialects in Arabic for sure, but the way that they tell you how to do it in modern standard Arabic, or what's known as Fusha, is that the bod is basically your tongue lays up against your teeth. I don't know how well you can see that. But your tongue lays up against the back of your teeth. your front teeth, I mean. And also the right and left sides of the back of your tongue are also laying on your top molars. It might sound confusing. I'm about to park here, and I can put on my car light so that I can maybe give you a better explanation with my hands here. And I'll try to get some picture that I can overlay here that might show it a little bit better. Let's see here. Okay. So with bod, let's pretend my hand here, I don't know how well you can see this. Let's say that this is like my front teeth, okay? And this is my tongue. So the tongue goes up against the front teeth like that. Bod. Bod. So you'll see that this is the top of the tongue will go on the roof of the mouth, and the tip of the tongue goes like behind the teeth. Bod. And then at the same time, pretend my thumb here is the molars. You have the side of the tongue touching the molars, both sides. So bod, bod. And here again, you're also lowering that jaw. It also affects the vowels that precede and come after it. So bod, bod. And there's a lot of, Arabic words which use this letter, bod. One of them that comes to my mind right away is dabt, which means accuracy or precision, or indad, or many of them like that.